casa. Soy La Llorona. Okay, so what's up, guys? It's me, Shelly Flowers. You're watching Shelly Flowers Reads and Writes, where I talk about all things related to reading and writing. It's October, my favorite month of the year. It is currently spooky season, and you know, I'm just dressed up in a costume like I do every night in the month of Halloween. So that noise you heard was my daughter. My husband's off grilling some wings, and then we're about to go to a corn maze, which I'm super excited about. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about my TBR for the month of October. So let's jump into it. Now, before I start, I do want to say there's going to be a mix of books. I read some spooky books this month, but I'm also going to be reading some books for Latinx Heritage Month because, for those of you who don't know, it actually ends October 15th. So I have a couple books in there that'll mix up and probably help me out so I don't completely lose my mind with all of the creepy, scary, spooky books that I plan on reading. All right, let's get into it now. First up, I am currently reading Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I am really loving this book so far. It follows the story of Yadriel, who is a trans brujo, and he is on a journey of self-discovery and figuring out how to make magic work for him, even though his family doesn't believe that because of his trans experience, he's able to fully become a brujo. So in that time, he ends up coming across the school bad boy named Julian and his best friend, and together all three of them become the new Marigoldian trio, I think is how Aiden Thomas referenced it. And they just, try to solve the mystery of how Julian died and how Yadriel is able to use his powers. So I'm loving it so far. It's a lot of really fun action, and the plot is just flowing really well. This book also has a third-person narrator, which I think is just the kind of narrator that I like. So maybe that's just something for me to keep in mind with future books. But anyway, loving this. Very excited to keep reading this. The next few books are going to be more in the Latinx Heritage Month vein. So I have these three books here. I have The Performance of Becoming Human by Daniel Borzutsky, a Chilean Jewish author. I have What a Coach Can Teach a Teacher by Jeff Duncan Andrade, who is a Chicano author. And then I have Malcriada and Other Stories by Lorraine Avila, who is a Dominican-American author. I'm not going to get into too much specifics about these books because I already made a video on it, which you can find in the cards above. But if you're looking for more Latinx reads, I highly recommend these books. I have read part of this one and I enjoy it. So if you have any teacher friends or if you yourself are a teacher, this is a good one to check out. I read this one a couple years ago and it was very different than the kind of poetry I normally read, but if you are looking to challenge yourself with the poetry you read, highly recommend this one. And this one I haven't read yet, but I follow a lot of poets who really love Lorraine Avila, so I'm excited to dive into her work this month. Next up, I'm going to be reading Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire. Now, I will say I don't think this book has creepy vibes necessarily. I think it's a lot more of like sad boy vibes, but that's okay because it's fall as we can get in Florida, and I think the vibes will still be great in this book. This is one of my favorite books of poetry of all time, and I haven't read it since grad school, so it's about time I dive back into it. Next up, really exciting news. So for those of you who follow both Kaye Spivey and I, you have heard we are reading The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. We're also going to be doing a live show on October 18th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, noon Pacific Standard Time. So if you are interested in joining us, pick up this book. We're also going to post vlogs about our reading experience. I plan on pairing this with watching a lot of movies and TV shows that are based off of this book in particular. So if that sounds interesting to you, just keep track of our journeys. And if you plan on reading it, make sure you use the hashtag #TheHauntingBuddyRead, because I would love to follow other people in their progress of reading this book. Next up, a book I plan on reading in this month is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. I have seen so many people talk about this book on BookTube, and it just intrigues me a lot. It gets compared to Get Out, although I did just watch Jesse Owen's video, and I'll link that down below where she reviewed it, and she said that this didn't actually fit the description of Get Out in her opinion. But regardless, I am excited to get into a good thriller, and The premise intrigues me. The last book I plan on reading in the month of October is Stephen King, Everything's Eventual, 14 Dark Tales. I am not the biggest fan of Stephen King. I've read Carrie and I've read, I think that's it. I think I've actually only ever read Carrie by Stephen King, but my husband loves this book. He says this is his favorite book of all time. So I figured, you know, if it's gonna be on my shelf, I might as well know what it's about. So as many of you guys know, every month on this channel, I unhaul books to make space for the books that I read in that month. So last month I read Kindred and Song Below Water. Those were the two physical books that I read, and I loved them both. If I rate a book less than 2 stars, I automatically unhaul it. But if I rate it 3 stars or above, then I'm keeping it. And that's what I did with both of those books. That means I had to get rid of one book to make space for them, and that book that I'm getting rid of this month is Under Orders by Dick Francis. This book was one of the first books I read this year. It has been on my shelf for almost a decade, and I finally got around to it because I have been making this goal of trying to read more books than I ever had in my life. And I just didn't like it. It's, you know, one of my mom's favorite books. She passed away a while ago. I felt like I was finally emotionally ready to read it. I ended up not loving it. You know, I saw so much of why it is that my mom liked this book. Also, shout out to this author photo in the back. Like, but, you know, I could see why my mom would have liked this author and books like this, but for me, it's just not my thing. Also, for those of you who don't know, I regularly try to give out books for free. So I have an Amazon shop where I sell all of the books that I unhaul, and you can find the link for that down below. But if you see a book in particular that you really want, please just message me. You can DM me on Instagram or on Twitter, and I will send you the book. Just give me your address and I'll mail it that way, because I don't like to hoard things. I like to give things away, and especially if I can do it for free, that's great. But if I can make some money off of it, that's kind of nice too. So just a little plug for that. All right, y'all, so that is it from me today. If you liked what you see, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday, sometimes Friday. I am also a published author, and I have a few books for sale. So if you are interested in purchasing those, you can find these 2 books linked down below. I also wrote a picture book, my very first children's picture book. It is a Halloween themed picture book. So if you've got any little ones in your life, this would be a great gift for them, especially because Halloween's gonna be extra weird this year. You can find me on all social media platforms as @ShellyFlowers. All right, if you watched all the way to the end of this video, please let me know, what book are you most anticipating reading in the month of October? I'd love to hear. All right, ciao.